Topical issues. The Bayan Karaula discs in 1938. Talking about conspiracies of aliens, many governments have been found complacent, trying to cover up the evidence when it's found. Things are seen and they claim they have not been seen. Take this find. In 1938, an archaeologist called Sum Nui from China, on the boundary of China and a neighboring country, came upon the mountainside of a place that was abandoned, people don't visit, overgrown. And he got curious about that area. On investigating, he found that there were rooms cut inside the caves that had been done by high technology that would not have been known by that time, and even now cannot be able to perform such a cuttings in the rock. And when they went inside, because there were several cuttings, several room-like things, they stumbled upon skeletons of humanoids around 1.5 meters in length. And you were amazed. They didn't know what it was, because these humanoid skeletons had a very big head, and the rest of the body looked small and frail, unlike the human body. They were wondering now, what can this be? In the process of further investigations, they found things like the discs that used to be played on the gramophone, cut out of rock. On checking those gramophone-like discs with a magnifying glass, he realized they were grooves and certain patterns. And within those patterns, when you magnified with a magnifying glass, there were messages. So he decided to do studies, and after some time he was able to decipher what those writings were. The skeletons were moved to a place, and the records, almost 157 or something like that, were collected. We equipped with the knowledge of interpretation of this new language, he started going through the records, and to his shock, it was a very sad story. It was a story of people who had left their stellar system, people who had traveled, and their spacecraft had malfunctioned, and they crashed on the mountain. They quickly adjusted to the place because of their high technology. So if they are humanoid, it means they were breathing oxygen like us, because there's no other way they would have survived. And on reading, they were talking of that came from a distant planetary system, a stellar system, and their spacecraft had crashed on that area. They could not be able to repair their spacecraft. And after some time, they tried to integrate with the people, and the people would try to hunt them like wild animals. So sometimes they had to defend themselves, and sometimes they had to stay aloof from the people. So they chose those places because they were isolated and disturbed, and that's where they built those rooms for their functioning. Looks like after a time they all died, and That's why the skulls and the skeletons were in those caves that had been shaped with a technology higher than what we know. Those records had many, many stories. Many, many, many stories. And they had to be kept now under the care of the Chinese museums and whatever. And after a while, those people are told they disappeared. On following, they were told there was nothing. In fact, that was a hoax. And looks like some materials, some metals that had been collected within that area had been put there by people who were curious to talk about unidentified flying objects and to attract the attention of the people. Otherwise, no skulls, no skeletons had been found, no records had been found, no interpretation had been done by Sum Nui. On further follow-ups, those who handled the materials said they were real, the records were real, made out of stone, with those recordings real, and the interpretations were real. It left people, and still leaves people, in a very trying situation, trying to find out whether it is the truth that those who handled this material and the interpretation say it's true, or is it true that this was a hoax and these people were complacent. Very interesting. But from some other historical things that I had been going through, it was certified that this was a reality. It happened so many years. And looks like these humanoid forms died out. They were not able to spread with the others. That is what the records of Bayan, Karaula speak about. They talk about a people called the Dropa. Those who are people called Dropa, from a stellar system unknown, but had crashed there. Their technology could show that their technology was far, far beyond our technology. And the skeletons showed that they were not ordinary human beings. And those who handled this material for some time before they disappeared claimed that these things were real. The material were real, the skeletons real, the Dropa records real, and the interpretation true. So it leaves us in a quagmire. But I will take it as evidence that many of the systems and governments would not like us to affirm that these things are there. Reason is unknown to these governments, but you find technologically they are advancing very fast, meaning that those materials may have contained very important information which had to make them disappear. This is one of such a case that somebody has found the material, seen the humanoid form skeletons, interpreted, only to be told those things don't exist. It is a hoax. And some few fragments of metals from here, minerals brought, and you told this is what was from the Bayan Kara Ula place. It's interesting. But for those of MUFON hanger files, it may be an interesting conspiracy. To the layman like me, it is another evidence to show that this world is not the way we know it. And Despite many things that we are told, these things don't exist. There are other entities that exist. There are other entities that have been trapped here. And the flow of these entities did not start recently. It started over a long time and has been going on. And this is evidence because there is cover up. That is my take. What do you think?